Daniel Kincaid never considered himself a jealous person. On the contrary, he was proud of his ability to trust people, especially his wife. Ashley had always been a pillar of stability for him, a woman with whom he had lived side by side for 18 years. They built a life together, overcame difficulties, rejoiced in successes, and now, it seemed, they had finally reached the level where they could relax and simply enjoy family harmony. Or at least that's what he thought. Daniel was 42 years old. Tall, fit, with short brown hair and gray eyes, he looked younger than his age. His life seemed settled, a prestigious job in financial consulting, a comfortable home in the suburbs of Atlanta, two children, 7-year-old Sarah and Tom, 4. He considered himself a man who had achieved success. Of course, he was not a millionaire, but his wealth allowed his family to live without any special worries. But Ashley, she was his complete opposite. While he preferred order and routine, she loved spontaneity. While he valued silence, she loved parties. However, it was this combination that made their marriage lively, filled with colors. Daniel always thought that their love would withstand any test. Until tonight. He sat at the kitchen table, idly scrolling through the news feed on his phone. Music was playing in the living room. Ashley was watching another episode of her favorite TV series, seemingly not even noticing her husband. Their relationship was not always like this. They once talked for hours about everything in the world. Now their communication was reduced to discussing bills, plans for the weekend, and the children's progress. Ashley's phone, which was lying next to her cup of tea, suddenly vibrated. The screen blinked, revealing a message. Daniel automatically looked in his direction, not intending to read it, but one word immediately attracted his attention. "I miss you. When will we meet?" Daniel's heart began to beat faster. He sharply turned his gaze to his wife, but she did not seem to notice anything. She was still sitting serenely, wrapped in a blanket, and intently watching the TV screen. Maybe it's just a friend. A thought flashed, but something inside him told him that this was not so. The text had no qualifications, no name, and the message seemed too personal. He tried to convince himself that this was some kind of stupid joke or misunderstanding, but a feeling of anxiety had already settled in his chest. Maybe you should just ask. After all, they had no secrets from each other. Or were they? Only a few seconds passed, but they seemed like an eternity to him. He could simply pretend that he didn't notice anything, but his inner voice wouldn't allow it. He needed to know. "Ashley, you have a message," he said as calmly as possible. She flinched slightly, as if she had been caught by surprise, and turned her head. "What?" "Oh, yes." She reached for the phone, quickly grabbed it, and moved the screen away from Daniel's eyes. Her face tensed for a second, but was immediately replaced by a normal expression. "Kelly just wrote. She broke up with her boyfriend and is now suffering." She smiled, but her fingers gripped the phone too tightly. "Kelly?" he asked again. "Why is it so?" "Ambiguous." "Oh, she always writes as if it's a drama of the century," Ashley laughed, not taking her eyes off her husband. Daniel nodded, trying to convince himself that this explanation was enough. But deep down he knew she was lying. Previously, he would not have suspected her. They had lived together for almost 2 decades, and he had no reason not to trust her. But something has changed in recent months. She began to stay late at work more often, sat on her phone more and more often, and when he entered the room, she quickly blocked the screen. There were other small signs: a new perfume that she had never used before, cautious questions about whether he was going on a business trip, strange calls to which she answered in monosyllables and went into another room. And now this message. Daniel looked at his wife again. She returned to her series, but her shoulders were tense. He knew her too well. She was nervous. Daniel didn't bring up the subject that evening. He was too stunned. But the very next morning, while Ashley was taking a shower, he did something he would never have allowed himself to do before. He took her phone. His fingers trembled as he scrolled through her latest messages. Most of them were harmless correspondence with friends, children, colleagues. But as soon as he entered one of the chats without a name, everything went cold inside. "I missed you. Last night was incredible. When will we see you again? The message was sent 2 days ago. There was no answer from Ashley, but that didn't mean anything. She could have removed it. Daniel closed his eyes. He hoped he was wrong, that this is just someone's joke, that this is a misunderstanding. But here it is, in front of him, in black and white. My chest felt as if a ton of bricks had been dumped on it. He felt his heart pounding in his ears. He forced himself to take a deep breath, then another. Now he had two options: face it, or collect more evidence first. Daniel lay in bed, listening to Ashley's steady breathing. She slept curled up in a ball, as usual. In the darkness, her silhouette looked as familiar as the last 18 years of their life together. But now there was something foreign about him, something that was unsettling. He replayed the evening's events in his head again. This is the message. It gave him no rest. He saw how she lied to him without blinking an eye. The confidence with which she did it was frightening. There was no fear of being exposed, no shame, which means maybe it was more than just flirting. Turning his head towards the bedside table, Daniel looked at the screen of his phone. 2:17. Sleep still did not come. He could just wait until morning and ask her again. But he knew that he would not get the truth. If she had already learned to lie so easily, then what stopped her from continuing to do so? He needed proof. Facts. Without them, it was all just guesswork. And he had a man who could help. Daniel got out of bed, trying not to wake Ashley. Taking the phone, he left the bedroom and went downstairs to the living room. There, in the twilight, he found the desired contact in the list of numbers. Adam Lawrence. They studied together in college. Back then, Adam was a guy who knew how to find a way out of any situation. Daniel remembered how once he was almost expelled for violating discipline, but by some miracle all the charges disappeared. Even then, Adam said that truth is what people are ready to accept as truth. After graduation, they went their separate ways. Daniel went into finance, and Adam chose a more dangerous profession: private investigator, specialist in exposing lies. Daniel didn't know if he was still doing it, but he hoped he was. He dialed the number and pressed the phone to his ear. Long beeps followed one after another. Perhaps it's too late. Adam might not even pick up the phone. But on the fourth ring, a hoarse voice was heard. "Who the hell is calling this early?" "Adam, this is Dan." A few seconds of silence, then a heavy breath. "Kincaid, damn, buddy, how many years, how many winters? What happened? Don't tell me you're in trouble." There's panic in your voice. "I need your help," Daniel said, getting straight to the point. "Are you still investigating? So, have you decided to change your boring life and add a little adrenaline?" Adam yawned. "Yes, I'm still in business. What do you have?" Daniel closed his eyes, gathering his courage. "I think my wife is cheating on me. I need to know the truth." There was another pause on the other end of the line. Then there was a heavy exhalation. "Well, crap. Are you sure?" "Not yet. But I have reasons to suspect." "Okay, let's do it this way." Adam's voice became businesslike. "In the morning, send me everything you have. Her daily routine, places where she goes, friends, colleagues. The more details, the better. I'll get a couple of people involved, and we'll see what we can dig up." "Thank you, Adam." "Don't thank me yet. You may not like what you find out." "I just need the truth," Daniel answered firmly. "Then I'll see you tomorrow, buddy." The connection was interrupted. Daniel looked at the phone screen, then slowly lowered it onto the table. My chest felt tight. He felt that he had just launched a mechanism that could change his whole life. He walked back up to the bedroom and lay down next to Ashley. She didn't even move. He looked at her in the darkness, trying to discern in her features the woman he loved, but now he saw only a stranger. Thoughts gave me no rest. I remembered the moments when he blindly trusted her, did not pay attention to strange calls or sudden changes in mood. Were there signs before, or did he just not want to see them? The feeling of anxiety grew. Dozens of questions were spinning in my head. Who sent this message? How long does this last? How far has it gone? In the morning, he was going to send Adam all the necessary information. But deep down, he knew that if his suspicions were confirmed, his life would never be the same. Daniel sat in his office, his eyes fixed on the laptop monitor, but not seeing anything in front of him. He replayed his morning conversation with Adam over and over in his head. All he had to do was gather information and pass it on. It shouldn't have been difficult, but it was heartbreaking. Too hard. A chat with a detective flashed on the phone screen. Man, send her schedule, photos, car numbers, any habits. The more details, the faster we'll figure it out. Daniel, fine, give me some time. He took a deep breath and began to gather information. He knew Ashley's routine better than he wanted to. Every morning at 7:30 she went to the gym, then had breakfast at her favorite cafe on the corner, worked until late in the evening, and met with friends a couple of times a week. Or, as he now suspected, with someone else. His hands shook as he typed, writing down every fact he knew. Gym Fitzone from 7:30 to 9 o'clock on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Breakfast at Green Cafe after training. Working hours, 9:30, 18 o'clock, sometimes until 20 o'clock. Meeting with friends Tuesday and Thursday, but the exact location is unknown. Automobile, black Lexus RX 350, license plate GX 5784. Favorite restaurants: the Trattoria, Riverfront Grill, Montclair Bistro. He added several photographs of them together so that the detective would not have problems with identification. Pausing for a moment, he looked at the last photo he took on Christmas Day. Ashley smiled, clinging to him, her eyes shining with warmth and joy. Or did he think so? Now, looking at her, all he saw was a woman who had probably been lying to him for months. Gritting his teeth, he attached the file and sent the message. Man, received. We are working. Stay in touch. The next 2 days dragged on painfully long. Daniel tried to act as normal, but every time Ashley said that she would be late at work or see her friends, he felt a twinge of nausea. He was waiting for a call, a message, at least some kind of signal from Adam. But the phone was silent. In the evenings, he looked at his wife, trying to understand what was going on in her head. Was there regret in her gaze, or did she just continue to play the role of the ideal wife? They went to bed as always, but there was a wall between them. Daniel barely slept, tossing and turning in his bed and running through all sorts of scenarios in his head. On the third day in the morning, I received a message. Man, we need to meet. I have something for you. Daniel, now. Man, yes, come to the cafe on Willow Street in 20 minutes. He left the house without even saying goodbye to Ashley, who, as usual, was preparing to leave. My heart was beating wildly. Thoughts were flashing through my head. What if this was just a misunderstanding? Maybe he started this whole process in vain. The cafe on Willow Street was where she and Adam met as students. Dark, with a smell of coffee and vanilla, it was surprisingly deserted this morning. Adam was already waiting, sitting in the corner, his usual smirk not on his face. Sit down, he said shortly. Daniel sat down opposite him, feeling his palms become covered with sweat. Is everything bad? His voice trembled. Adam silently took an envelope out of his pocket and placed it on the table. You have to be prepared for what you see. Daniel swallowed, feeling the tension tighten in his chest. He slowly opened the envelope. In the first photo, Ashley was sitting in a restaurant. Her hand lay on the man's hand. Vincent Richardson, tall, dark-haired, confident. Daniel recognized him immediately. He was a client of their company. He turned the page. Second photo. They laughed, and this laughter was not just friendly. Ashley's eyes shone with the same fire that he had not seen in his marriage for a long time. She looked at Vincent the way she should have looked at her husband. And then the last photo. Their lips met in a deep, passionate kiss. Ashley pressed herself close to Vincent, her fingers intertwined in his hair, and his hand rested confidently on her waist. They forgot about everything around them, completely immersed in a moment in which there was no room for doubt or shame. Daniel's world collapsed. He closed his eyes, but the image was already imprinted on his mind. The palms clenched into fists. He felt a wave of pain, anger, and disappointment growing in his chest. Damn. He exhaled, feeling how everything was turning inside him. Adam looked at him sympathetically. "I'm sorry, Dan, but now you have proof." Daniel nodded, feeling his fingers tighten around the photographs. Everything became real. Now he knew the truth. But what to do next? Daniel sat at his desk, clutching photographs in his hands. His eyes slid over image after image, every detail, every gesture in the photographs cut into his mind like a knife. Vincent Richardson, the man who dared to touch his wife, the man who was now his enemy. He took a deep breath and turned on his laptop. His fingers trembled, but he quickly typed Ashley's lover's name into the search bar. After a few seconds, a wealth of information opened up in front of him. Vincent Richardson, 45 years old. Tall, stately, with piercing dark eyes and a well-groomed beard. Owner of a chain of luxury car dealerships throughout the state. Millionaire. Playboy. His car dealerships offered not only cars, but a whole world of luxury and status. From car shows to private champagne parties costing thousands of dollars a bottle. Every article, every report portrayed him as a successful businessman and charismatic leader. He spoke at conferences and was quoted in business publications. But there were other sides, rumors about his numerous novels, relationships with models and actresses. Paparazzi more than once caught him in the company of women whose names were associated with the world of glamour. But the most amazing thing is that Vincent was married. His wife, Amelia Richardson, a woman with delicate features and soft eyes, comes from an old wealthy family. Unlike her husband, she did not like publicity and preferred charity and family values. They had been married for 15 years. The couple often appeared at charity events, portraying a perfect union. It is ironic that under the guise of an ideal marriage, something completely different was hidden. "So he not only destroyed my marriage, but also betrayed his wife," Daniel muttered, feeling the pain mixed with a new wave of anger. Now he was interested in everything: where Vincent lives, where he goes, with whom he communicates. He found his address a luxurious mansion in an elite area surrounded by a high fence. Nearby there is a golf club, fitness center, spa. Vincent loved luxury in everything. Daniel even came across records of his cars: a black Porsche 911, a silver Mercedes class, a vintage Mustang. Vincent did not hide his wealth. On the contrary, he flaunted it. His social networks were full of pictures from travels, yachts, and parties. But among all these glamour shots, there was something else. A few photos with Amelia. Always at charity events, always reserved, almost formal. Daniel noticed something in her eyes that he had not noticed before longing. Maybe she suspected something too? Maybe she knew about his infidelities? Anger was no longer just an emotion. It became fuel. Daniel knew he had to act. At first, he just wanted to talk to Ashley, find out the truth, but now everything has changed. It's not just cheating anymore. This is betrayal, and he couldn't let Vincent get away with it. Thoughts were spinning in my head. Each new idea seemed more dangerous and tempting. He could expose him to his wife, set him up at work, and undermine his reputation. The possibilities were endless. But first it was necessary to know everything down to the smallest detail. Who is Vincent Richardson? When is he dating Ashley? Where do they hang out? It was necessary to find his weak points. "You chose the wrong woman to destroy my world, Vincent," he whispered, his voice echoing icy in the silence of the office. His anger was no longer destructive. Now he has become creative, creating a plan for revenge. Daniel stood in front of the bathroom mirror, watching his reflection. His face looked unusually calm, but he knew it was just an illusion. Behind a thin mask of serenity, a storm was raging. His eyes, usually soft and warm, now seemed cold and lifeless. He didn't recognize himself. He washed his face with cool water, dried his face thoroughly with a towel, and took a deep breath. Today was an ordinary day, the same as everyone else. His children sat at the kitchen table, discussing school plans. Ashley was preparing breakfast. Her voice sounded calm, as if nothing had happened. He paused at the bathroom door, closing his eyes. The feeling was strange. It was as if he was an actor in a theater where a play about a happy marriage was being performed. Only his role now required not just participation, but complete transformation. The mask must be flawless. Having collected himself, he left the bathroom and walked into the kitchen. Common morning sounds, the clanking of dishes, the clatter of a fork on a plate, the quiet voices of children. Good morning, he greeted everyone, entering with a slight smile. Sarah looked up from her phone and smiled weakly at her father. Tom, his youngest son, muttered something as he chewed his toast intently. Daniel walked past them, placing his hand on his daughter's shoulder, and approached his wife. Slept like a baby, he said, leaning over to kiss her on the cheek. Ashley turned around, her eyes lingering on his face for a moment. Did he really see a shadow of doubt? Or maybe it was just fatigue. She smiled and went back to making the omelet. Breakfast is almost ready. Do you mind making some coffee? Of course, dear. His voice sounded evenly, his movements were calm. He opened the cabinet, took out a can of coffee, and poured a measuring spoon into the coffee maker. Every action was precise, almost mechanical. He knew not a single mistake could be made. You can't let your emotions take over. Dad, will you pick me up after class today? Tom asked, looking up from his plate. Certainly. What time do you finish? At 3. I also need to go to the store to get some notebooks. No problem, we'll stop by, Daniel answered, smiling. I'm going to Megan's after school, Sarah inserted. We will prepare for the test. Good idea, he nodded. The main thing is don't be late. Yes, yes, I know, the girl rolled her eyes. Daniel played his part all day. He joked with the kids, helped Ashley with the cleaning, and told stories about work over dinner. His laughter sounded natural, and the smile never left his face. Not a muscle moved when Ashley, putting her arm around his shoulders, told him how much she loved him. How was your day? She asked in the evening when they were alone in the kitchen. Not bad. There were a few meetings, but nothing special, he replied. You look tired, she noted, looking at him warily. There's just a lot to do, he shrugged, picking up his coffee cup. How are you doing? Fine. An ordinary day, she answered, but there was something strained in her voice. Or did he just imagine it? They watched a movie in the evening with the whole family. He sat next to his wife, hugging her, feeling her warmth. His fingers gently stroked her hand, and memories of those photographs flashed through her head. He could have just squeezed her hand a little tighter, but no. His fingers remained soft, his movements gentle. When the kids went to bed, Ashley kissed him on the cheek and said, I'm so happy that everything is so good with us. You are my best friend. I'm happy too, honey. His voice didn't waver. Maybe tomorrow we can have dinner for just the two of us. We haven't gone out together for a long time, she suggested. Great idea, he smiled. Let's. When they got into bed, he closed his eyes, listening to her breathing. It became even she fell asleep. But his own sleep did not come. His eyes remained open in the darkness, and pain smoldered behind his mask of calm. But no one knew about it, and no one was supposed to find out. Daniel watched Ashley from the kitchen table. She was scrolling through her phone as usual, drinking her morning coffee. An ordinary morning, an ordinary day, an ordinary wife, but not for him. It seemed to him that he was looking at a stranger whom he should love, but could no longer. He tried to remember the last time he sincerely admired her, when he felt the joy of her presence. But all these memories were drowned in a dark pool of betrayal that burned him from the inside. He took a deep breath and put on his mask of a caring husband. Ash, I have a surprise for you, he said with a warm smile that he hoped looked natural. She raised her head and looked at him in slight surprise. He rarely surprises her, especially lately. This change alarmed her, but she did not show it. Is it true? Which? He pulled out from behind his back a bouquet of her favorite white lilies, bought on the way home. Fresh, with a light, subtle aroma, they looked perfect, just like his idea. Just like that. Just because you deserve attention. Her eyes widened for a moment. She didn't expect this. Her lips trembled and then broke into a sincere smile. She took the bouquet, inhaled the aroma, and gently ran her fingers over the petals. Dan, she said quietly, her voice sounding surprised, even a little embarrassed. "This is so cute. Thank you." She stood up, walked over to him, and kissed him tenderly on the lips. He answered just as softly as if he knew nothing, as if nothing had changed. Her touch was familiar, but at the same time foreign. He forced himself not to recoil. "That's not all," he continued, lightly touching her hand. "I thought it was time for us to shake up our relationship a little." "You love riddles, don't you?" Ashley perked up, her eyes sparkling. "Certainly. Are you up to something?" He nodded and handed her a small envelope. "This is a game. Romantic quest. The clues will lead you to a surprise, if, of course, you agree to play." Ashley laughed. Her laughter was clear and natural. She liked that kind of thing, and Daniel knew it. He had learned it too well over the years. "Oh, I like it already," she said, opening the envelope. Inside was a note written in his hand. "Where our morning secrets are kept, your next message awaits you." She thought for a moment, her brow furrowed, then her face cleared. "About. This is my bedside table," she exclaimed and quickly went to the bedroom. "Don't tell me," Daniel grinned, hiding his icy indifference inside. "Come on, I'll see how you handle it." Ashley rolled her eyes in amusement, giving him a mischievous look, and hurried into the bedroom. Daniel remained standing, watching her silhouette disappear through the door. His face remained calm, but inside he was seething. This game was just beginning. He slowly sat back down at the table, folded his hands, and exhaled. He felt strangely satisfied. Everything went exactly as he planned. Ashley had no idea that this quest was more than just romantic fun. Daniel was sitting in his car, parked across the street from the elite club Hamilton Lounge. Through the darkened windows, he watched the entrance, where expensive cars appeared one after another: BMW, Porsche, Rolls-Royce. These people loved to show off their wealth. They got out of their cars in expensive suits, accompanied by spectacular women, filled with a sense of their own superiority. Among them was Vincent Richardson. Everything that Daniel knew about him from the internet now received real confirmation. He loved luxury, pleasure, and power. In his hands, he invariably had a goblet glass with an amber liquid and a thick cigar in his teeth. He was in no hurry, walked confidently, looking around at those around him with a slight grin. This was a man who knew he was the boss in any room. Daniel spent the past few days studying Vincent's routine. It turned out to be easier than he thought. Such people rarely hide. They enjoy the attention. Vincent started his morning at the elite gym, Platinum Fitness. Expensive equipment, personal trainer, short but intense session. He didn't get there until 9 in the morning, avoiding the early hours as if he was in no hurry. During the day, he stopped by his car dealership, where he gave orders and then went for a late lunch at one of the prestigious restaurants La Trattoria or Chateau Lumiere. At the restaurant, he did not order food right away. First, he talked with the sommelier and chose the right wine. Vincent liked to feel like an expert. He spent his evenings either at closed parties or at his favorite club, the Hamilton Lounge, where he arrived closer to midnight. Daniel had been watching him for the fourth day. He began to understand how this person moves, how he chooses places, and with whom he communicates. This was not just a businessman, he was a man accustomed to power and attention. Women were drawn to him, men nodded respectfully, waiters knew his preferences. One evening, when Vincent was sitting at his usual table in the club, Daniel noticed how the waiter brought him a box of cigars. Vincent chose carefully, as if his entire evening depended on it. Daniel wrote in his notebook, "Cigars are an important ritual." The more Daniel watched him, the more he realized that Vincent lived as if he ruled an entire kingdom. Even when he got out of the car, he did so leisurely, enjoying the way the people around him were looking at him. He was never in a hurry. If someone delayed him in a conversation, he did not show irritation, but made it clear that he was indifferent to the attention of his interlocutor. Every evening, new women accompanied him. Tall, impressive, with perfect makeup. But Daniel noticed a pattern. The same woman rarely appeared next to him twice. He liked to change partners and demonstrate his availability. Don't get attached, always looking for something new, Daniel wrote in his notebook. He also noticed that Vincent rarely drank too much. Despite his love for whiskey, he knew when to stop. He was always in control of the situation, and this made him dangerous. Doesn't lose his head even in a relaxing environment. Daniel understood that in order to destroy Vincent, he must first become part of his world. Get to know him better. Get into his circle. To do this, you need to take the first step. He turned off the engine and picked up the phone. His fingers ran across the screen, finding the number he needed. One call, and he can move one step closer. He dialed the manager of the Hamilton Lounge. "Good evening, how can I help?" A polite voice rang out. "Good evening," Daniel replied evenly. "Your club was recommended to me as one of the best places in the city. I appreciate good whiskey, good cigars, and good company. I would like to reserve a table in the private area." Of course, Mr. Collateral Harris, he introduced himself. He decided to give a different last name. "Excellent, Mr. Harris. We can offer you a table tomorrow evening at 10. Will it suit you?" "Absolutely," Daniel nodded, although his interlocutor could not see him. "And one more question. I heard that Mr. Vincent Richardson often visits your club, right?" The other end of the line hesitated for a second, but then answered, "Our clients like privacy, but yes, Mr. Richardson is one of our valued guests." "Great. I would be interested to meet him. Do you think there will be a chance to cross paths?" "You never know," the voice smiled. "But Hamilton Lounge is always happy to see new customers. I'm sure you'll like it." "Thank you," Daniel answered briefly and hung up. He leaned back in his seat, feeling his heart begin to beat faster. This was the first real step. Now he is not just an observer. He enters Vincent's world. Daniel entered the Hamilton Lounge, pretending that he was setting foot in this luxurious world for the first time. His gaze quickly took in the surroundings: soft twilight, dim lights, heavy velvet curtains, and the smell of expensive cigars. There was something elite in the air, inaccessible to ordinary people. Everything here was about money and status. People sat relaxed at tables, sipping whiskey, and quiet jazz sounded in the air. He was dressed impeccably, an expensive dark blue suit that fit his figure perfectly, a snow-white shirt, and gold cufflinks. Everything looked like he belonged here. He walked to the bar without showing the slightest bit of concern, ordered a single malt whiskey, and took a seat so that he could see the entire room. And then he saw Vincent. He was sitting in the VIP area at a table with a couple of men and two spectacular women laughing at his words. He was holding a glass of whiskey in his hands, and an expensive Cuban cigar was slowly smoldering in his teeth. His posture was relaxed, self-confident. His gaze slid around the hall, assessing everyone present, but not lingering on anyone for long. He was in his element, surrounded by attention, money, and power. Daniel knew now was the time to take the first step, but he didn't need to rush. Everything should look natural. Daniel took his glass and leisurely walked to another part of the bar, as if studying the interior. He stopped next to one of the massive columns, pretending to notice someone familiar. Vincent glanced in his direction exactly at the moment when Daniel accidentally appeared next to his table. "Sorry, I didn't mean to interfere," Daniel said with a slight smile when he met Vincent's gaze. He raised an eyebrow, looking him up and down. His gaze was searching, but not hostile. "It's all right," he replied, releasing a stream of fragrant smoke. "It seems we don't know each other, or am I wrong?" Daniel grinned and pretended to be embarrassed. "Harris," he introduced himself, holding out his hand. "I just decided to look into this place. They say they know a lot about good whiskey and cigars." Vincent shook his hand slowly, his grin widening a little. "They didn't lie to you about that," he nodded. "Vincent Richardson. Have a seat if you don't mind. I don't like drinking alone." Daniel suppressed his inner triumph. Everything went according to plan. "Have you been here before?" Vincent asked, taking a light sip of whiskey and motioning for the waiter to come over. "No," Daniel lied, settling comfortably in his chair. "But I've been wanting to look in for a long time. They say this is a place for those who value quality." Vincent grinned and nodded to the waiter. "To Macallan 18S, no ice," he said, then turned to Daniel. "If you came here, it means you know how to appreciate expensive things." This is right. In life, it is important to understand the details. Do you agree? Daniel pretended to think and then nodded. Absolutely. Details define the level. I have always believed that success begins with how attentive you are to detail. Good answer, Vincent said approvingly and leaned back. And what do you do, Mr. Harris? Daniel pretended to hesitate for a second, as if he wasn't sure whether to reveal the details. Financial advice, investments, real estate, he said casually. I work with wealthy clients, helping them invest money correctly. Vincent raised an eyebrow in interest. Sounds like you have a good social circle. Wide enough, Daniel confirmed and took a sip of whiskey. Although in places like this, you can always find new people, especially those who understand the value of a smart approach to business. Vincent nodded slowly, looking at him with renewed interest. Daniel knew that such people were always on guard, but also liked to meet people similar to themselves. And Vincent loved power, influence, and successful acquaintances. That's right, he finally said. Business is always a combination of money, intuition, and good connections. And sometimes good luck, Daniel added, grinning. Vincent laughed. Exactly. Although I prefer to believe that we create our own luck. The conversation smoothly flowed into a discussion of elite clubs, expensive cars, and business. Daniel felt himself carefully but confidently fitting into Vincent's world. He did everything to seem like one of his own, to become part of Vincent's circle. This evening was just the beginning. The next morning, Daniel sat in his office, replaying in his head his conversation with Vincent the day before. Everything went according to plan, but it was not enough. He didn't just want to enter his world, he wanted to control it. To do this, you needed to know more than Vincent was ready to tell over a glass of whiskey. He picked up the phone and dialed Adam's number. He did not answer immediately. Apparently, he was still sleeping. I hope it's something important, Dan, because I haven't had my damn coffee yet, the detective grumbled. I need you to help me, Daniel said, ignoring his displeasure. You know I'm all for help, but first tell me what kind of trouble you're getting yourself into, Adam grinned. I need to get to Vincent Richardson's house, Daniel said calmly. There was silence on the other end, and then Adam exhaled. Damn, Dan, this isn't just a cheating test anymore. Are you sure? I'm sure, he answered firmly. I need to install cameras there. Collect incriminating evidence. I want to know everything he does, who he meets, and what he discusses, and I need it done quietly. Adam fell silent again. Daniel heard him light a cigarette. Okay, he said finally. But do you understand that if we are caught, this is not just surveillance, but hacking? Do you even know what you're doing? Yes, Daniel answered, and you know too. Fine. I have one person who can arrange delivery to his home. The security is most likely used by couriers. You will play the role of a delivery service employee. Great. When can we do this? Tomorrow afternoon, when he is not at home. I will clarify the details and send you the address of the warehouse where you will receive the form and box. Be ready. The next day, dressed in a courier uniform, Daniel drove up to Vincent's house. The mansion looked as impressive as its owner. High gates, perfectly trimmed lawns, modern surveillance cameras. He was holding a small box in his hands, supposedly a parcel, but in fact it contained wiretapping equipment and miniature cameras. He took a deep breath, activating his calm and confidence. The main thing is to look natural. He called the intercom and waited until the guard's face appeared on the screen. Delivery for Mr. Richardson, he said evenly. He's not at home right now, the guard answered, looking at him closely. I'm aware of it. He left instructions to hand over the order personally to the reception. Daniel answered calmly. Check, he should have warned you. The guard checked something on his tablet and, nodding, opened the gate. Come in, just quickly. Daniel walked inside, his heart pounding, but outwardly he remained calm. The inside of the house was even more luxurious than he had imagined. Marble floors, leather furniture, huge paintings on the walls. A luxurious carpet flowed from the stairs to the second floor, and huge windows overlooked the pool. The security guard pointed to a console table in the hallway. "Leave it here." "Of course," Daniel replied, putting the box down. Now on the way out. "Oh, sorry." Daniel pretended to rummage through his pockets. "Looks like my phone is missing. Can I check at the door?" The guard rolled his eyes. Fast. While he was distracted, Daniel pulled out one of the mini cameras and deftly attached it to a shelf with expensive cognacs. Then he leaned over as if checking his pockets. "Okay, I found it." He showed the phone. "Thank you. Have a nice day." He left as calmly as he entered. Now the game is moving to a new level. Ashley came downstairs, yawning and smoothing her disheveled hair. She could already smell the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the kitchen, and it lifted her mood slightly. The morning was the same as always. The house is shrouded in soft twilight, the sun barely breaks through the thick curtains, and somewhere upstairs the shower is noisy. Perhaps Daniel is still getting ready for work. But something was wrong. On the kitchen table, neatly folded, lay a white envelope. Next to her cup. She frowned, not immediately realizing what it was. Note? From Daniel? He never left her notes. She took the envelope, noticing that her name was written in familiar handwriting, neat, clear, slightly slanted to the right. Curiosity made her sit up. She carefully tore the envelope and pulled out a small piece of paper. Her heart beat a little faster when her eyes glanced at the words. "Tonight is special. Remember where we first realized that we were made for each other. 19 o'clock. I'll be waiting." She read the note twice. The words seemed simple, but they were imbued with meaning. Made for each other. She smiled. He meant their favorite restaurant, the Beautiful Night. The same one where many years ago they spent one of the most magical evenings of their lives. When he first took her hand, looked into her eyes, and said that he couldn't imagine his life without her. Where, a year later, he proposed to her. She ran her fingers along the edge of the note, as if trying to feel this moment again. Lately, their relationship seemed, no, not cold, but a little more distant. Life swirled them around in its own rhythm: work, worries, everyday life. And now he was doing something special. She took a deep breath, then looked back at the note. Daniel has never been the type to do things without a reason. His every step was always thought out. Why did he decide to have a romantic evening now? Just wanted to bring back the passion? Or did you feel that there was tension between them? Maybe he was trying to make amends for something. Thoughts raced restlessly through her head, but she pushed them away. Maybe she's just thinking too much. Maybe she should just enjoy the moment. Ashley stood up, took the note, and walked to the window. She wanted to see Daniel's car. Maybe he was still at home, but he was no longer there. Just an empty driveway and the morning air filled with spring freshness. Birds were chirping in the distance, and a black car drove leisurely down the street. Everything seemed normal, but a strange feeling did not leave her. She returned to the kitchen, took a sip of coffee, and reread the note again. There was something unusual about it. She couldn't understand what exactly, but a slight worry settled in her chest. Maybe just out of surprise. She sat down at the table and looked thoughtfully at the cup, letting the aroma of coffee fill her mind. Why is she nervous? It's just a romantic dinner, right? She looked at her watch, 8:15. There's still plenty of time. She had a normal day ahead of her at work, but now she knew that her thoughts would be far from the office. She remembered their past dinners at La Belle Nuit, the warm light of candles, the subtle aroma of vanilla in the air, the quiet melody of a saxophone. Maybe this evening will be the same. Maybe they can bring back that spark that seemed to have faded. Ashley ran her finger over the letters of the note one more time, and then carefully folded it and put it in her purse. Be that as it may, the evening promised to be interesting. And despite the slight anxiety, she felt a drop of anticipation inside her. After all, perhaps this is exactly what they need now. Ashley sat at a table in the La Belle Nuit restaurant, casually twirling the stem of her wine glass. The aroma of rosemary and spicy spices was in the air. Quiet music softly filled the space, creating an atmosphere of comfort and romance. She smiled. Everything seemed so right. A beautiful table, candles, an impeccably served dinner. This is exactly what the evening should have been like. Daniel sat opposite, perfectly dressed as always. His movements were clear and precise. He smiled at the right moments, answered her questions, and kept the conversation going. It looked like he was enjoying the moment, but something was wrong. There was no usual warmth in his eyes. She caught it several times. His smile appeared on his face, but did not reach his eyes. He looked at her differently than before. There was neither that deep love nor sincere affection in his gaze. It was the look of a man who was watching, analyze, studying. "You're acting strange," she suddenly said, leaning forward slightly and carefully peering into his face. Daniel raised his eyebrows as if surprised. Strange? In what sense? His voice sounded soft, but something cold slipped into it. Ashley wondered for a moment whether to continue. Maybe it's just her imagination. Maybe she's making it up. She swallowed and smiled. "I don't know. You're just somehow different." She tried to make the tone playful. "Maybe it seems to me. Or are you just tired?" Daniel smiled, bowing his head slightly. "Perhaps," he replied, raising his glass. "Or maybe I'm just glad you're finally into this game." Ashley laughed, but somewhere deep inside, she felt uneasy for a second. She couldn't understand why. "But seriously," she continued, taking a sip of wine, "you've changed, Dan. You haven't organized such quests before. You haven't come up with romantic games. It's nice, of course, but why now? What prompted you to do this?" He didn't answer right away. He seemed to deliberately pause, allowing her to think even more. "Sometimes change is necessary," he finally said. "Don't you like it?" "No, I like it," she hastened to say, although something inside told her that this conversation was going beyond the usual, just unexpectedly. Daniel looked at her a little longer than he should have. Then he smiled slightly and reached for her hand, gently squeezing her fingers. Sometimes the unexpected things are the most memorable, right? Ashley felt goosebumps run through her skin. His touch was warm, but his gaze remained cold. "Yes, I guess," she whispered, looking away. "You're especially mysterious today." Daniel laughed, but there was an artificial quality to the laugh. "I've always been like this, you just didn't notice," he said. She wanted to answer something, but at that moment the waiter approached their table, bringing dessert. "Your chocolate fondant, Mrs. Kincaid." Ashley nodded and looked at her husband. He smiled again, but now she couldn't shake the feeling that it was the smile of a man who already knew how this game would end. And Daniel just watched. I remembered her reaction. He knew that the next step had to be even more spectacular. Daniel sat in his office, dozens of videos opened in front of him on the computer screen. The cameras he installed in Vincent's house began to bear fruit. He didn't know what to expect at first: scenes of lovemaking, chance encounters with Ashley, but what he discovered turned out to be much more significant. Vincent was more than just a playboy. He was a liar and a cheater. In one of the recordings, dated 2 days ago, Vincent was sitting in his luxurious office, furnished with leather chairs and a massive oak table. Opposite him was a short man in an expensive suit with a briefcase. The conversation was muffled, but the microphones picked up every word. "Are you sure Amelia won't find out?" Vincent asked, nervously tapping his fingers on the table. "Completely," the man answered. The money was transferred through offshore companies, and the documents were drawn up as if she herself had signed them last year. Daniel froze. Vincent's wife, Amelia, the heiress of a huge business empire, the daughter of an influential man who, according to rumors, completely controlled the career of his son-in-law. Without her support, Vincent would be nothing. He played the video further. In the following days, Vincent hosted several more people: financiers, lawyers, even someone from the criminal world. It became increasingly clear that he was stealing from his wife, using her resources for his own risky deals. Daniel carefully reviewed each entry, stopping at important points. Vincent felt completely safe in his home, not even realizing that his every move was being recorded by hidden cameras. In one video, he was talking to a middle-aged, gray-haired man with glasses and a visibly worried expression. "These translations are too obvious, Vincent," he said, waving some documents in front of him. "If someone decides to dig deeper, they will realize that it is a fake, especially your father-in-law." Vincent frowned, took a sip of whiskey, and leisurely lit a cigar. "George, I'm not paying you for panicking. If you're afraid, leave. But remember, if you open your mouth, I will make sure you have no more clients." George pursed his lips, but didn't answer. He looked down and nodded slowly. "Okay," he said quietly. "I'll find a way to cover my tracks." Daniel made a note. Vincent wasn't just scheming. He intimidated people. He took advantage of the power of his wife and her family, hiding his own weakness behind it. In the next video, he noticed something else interesting. Vincent was talking on the phone, walking around the office. "No, Amelia doesn't suspect," he said irritably. "She's too busy with her charity work to check the accounts. The main thing is that her father does not stick his nose into the matter." Daniel leaned back in his chair, clenching his fists. Now everything has become obvious. Vincent didn't just depend on Amelia, he feared her father. He was so afraid that he was ready to resort to forgery and threats. He grinned. It was the perfect weakness. Now he knew how to destroy Vincent. Vincent received a message late in the evening. It was short and businesslike. "Confidential offer. Opportunity to expand business. Meeting today, 22 o'clock, warehouse on Waverly Street. Information strictly for you. Details at the meeting. Partner." He read it twice, squinted, and thought. The message was strange, but intriguing. In the business world, there have always been offers that are not discussed over the phone or in restaurants. He was used to shady deals, especially when money was involved. Without wasting time, he dialed his assistant's number. "Find out who it could be," he ordered. "It's late, boss. I can do it in the morning." "No, now." 20 minutes passed before the assistant called back. "The source is clean," he said. "Someone really wants to discuss investments. The information is classified, but it seems worth attention." Vincent nodded with satisfaction. He was a risk-taker, and he's not used to missing out on opportunities. At 9:55 p.m., Vincent stepped out of his car, frowning. The warehouse looked abandoned, a tall metal structure, dirty windows, a rusty door. There is emptiness all around. No cars, no people. Only the moon dimly illuminated the space. He took out his phone, but there was no connection. "Damn," he muttered, looking around. At this moment, the warehouse door slowly opened. A single lantern burned inside, illuminating a table and 2 chairs. Everything looked too theatrical, but he was not used to retreating. He entered, the door slammed behind him. In complete silence, footsteps were heard. A masked man emerged from the shadows. "I'm glad you came, Mr. Richardson," said a calm voice. Vincent tensed. "Who are you? Where is my partner?" "He's here," answered the voice, "just in a different role." The man took his phone out of his pocket and pressed a button. A video appeared on the screen, footage from Vincent's house, his machinations, his threats, his conversations. Vincent felt cold sweat running down his back. "What kind of game?" he hissed. "This is not a game, Vincent," the voice answered. "This is the end." Vincent felt a chill run down his spine. He was still trying to figure out what kind of game he had been pulled into. But one thing was clear: he was no longer in control of the situation. The masked man was in no hurry to approach. He simply watched, enjoying how the noose around his neck slowly tightened. "What do you want?" Vincent asked, hiding the trembling in his voice. "I want you to understand." The voice sounded calm, but this made it even scarier. "You lived too carelessly, Vincent. You thought you were in control of the game, but now this is my party." Vincent gritted his teeth. "You have no idea who you're messing with." He took a sharp breath, trying to remain confident. "If this is blackmail, name the amount. If you want me to do something, tell me. But there is no need for these theatrical scenes." The masked man silently took out a bottle of whiskey and 2 glasses. He poured the amber liquid with a loud clatter, then slowly moved one of the glasses towards Vincent. Have a drink. Vincent narrowed his eyes. Do you think I'm that stupid? You're not in a position to choose. The voice became colder. Either you drink it yourself, or I'll pour it down your throat. Vincent swallowed. He didn't know what was in the glass, but he knew that he was facing a man who did not hesitate. He took the glass, trying not to show fear, and took a slow sip. The whiskey burned my throat. The taste is ordinary, but within a minute his eyelids began to get heavy. You. The words came with difficulty. What are you? Relax, Vincent. It's just a sleeping pill. We still have a long conversation ahead. The room swam before my eyes. The last thing he saw was the silhouette of a masked man leaning over him. My head was buzzing, like after a bad hangover. My mouth was dry, every movement was difficult. Vincent slowly opened his eyes and immediately closed them. The dim light cut his pupils like needles. He tried to move his hands, but they did not obey. Something cold and metal was squeezing my wrists. Handcuffs. Vincent froze. Gradually, consciousness began to clear up. He sat on a heavy metal chair in an empty, abandoned room. The sound of dripping water could be heard in the corner. The smell of dampness and rust filled my nostrils. The light came from a single lamp hanging from the ceiling. It swayed in the wind, casting eerie shadows on the walls. He had a folded piece of paper on his lap. His hands shook as he unwrapped it. You know why? You have time to fix everything, or I'll fix it for you. Very hard. Next time you won't wake up. He reread the note several times, feeling the panic growing inside him each time. Nausea rose in my throat. Whoever it was knew too much. He saw, he heard. But who? Vincent tried to remember who he had crossed paths with recently, who could hate him so much. Competitors? Criminal connections? Unhappy partners? Or? He froze. No, this can't be true. He suddenly remembered his eyes. The only thing he could see was through the mask. Those eyes, they were familiar. But from where? A dull noise outside made him flinch. He jerked, checking how tightly the handcuffs were tightened. The iron cut painfully into the skin. The warehouse door remained closed, but Vincent felt that he was not alone here. Someone is watching. Someone is waiting. He took a deep breath, trying to control himself. He's Vincent Richardson, damn it. He's not a victim. He'll get out of this. But a feeling arose inside that he had never experienced. Fear. Ashley sat in the living room, absent-mindedly flipping through an old photo album. This was another riddle from Daniel. He left a note for her on the pillow in the morning, writing only one word: memories. At first, she didn't understand, but then she decided that we were talking about their photo albums locked in the closet in the office. She sat down on the sofa with a warm blanket, moved the cup of coffee closer, and opened the first album. Black and white shots, happy moments, a wedding, a vacation on the coast, the birth of children, warm smiles filled with sincere love. Each picture was imbued with their past happiness. She ran her fingers over the photo of her and Daniel holding hands during their first year of marriage, her heart clenching with a warm but slightly aching feeling. Why now? Why did he send her on a trip down memory lane? She smiled as she looked at the pictures until she reached the last page. There was a photograph there that she had never seen before. Ashley froze. It was not just a photograph, but something completely different. The picture showed her standing in a restaurant with Vincent. They sat at the table, leaning towards each other. Her hand lay on his palm. Their gazes met in that intimacy that cannot be hidden. The picture was clearly taken secretly from afar, but the faces were distinguishable. Her heart began to beat faster. My throat is dry. She felt a shiver run through her body. Who took this photo? How did he end up here? And most importantly, did Daniel know? She couldn't breathe. Her hands shook as she slowly ran her fingers along the edge of the photo. It was impossible. This shouldn't have happened. She tried to remember that evening, what exactly happened then. It was an ordinary dinner, an ordinary conversation. But now, looking at the photo, it seemed somehow sinister. Someone was watching her. Thoughts were racing chaotically in my head. Maybe this is a coincidence. Maybe someone accidentally took a photo and planted it. But no, the album was in their house, in their closet, in a place where no one except Daniel had ever looked. He knew. Ashley felt fear rise in her chest. Everything that seemed like a romantic game to her now took on a different meaning. Ashley tapped her fingers nervously on the table as she looked at her phone screen. The name Matt Collins flickered on the display, but she couldn't bring herself to press the call button. They hadn't spoken in months, but if anyone could help her figure out the situation, it was him. A former private investigator turned legal consultant, Matt knew all the loopholes and intricacies of divorce proceedings. She took a deep breath, collecting her thoughts. Her heart was beating faster than usual, and her throat was dry. A voice inside me kept telling me that maybe she was exaggerating, that maybe Daniel was just going through a midlife crisis, but every instinct screamed, he knows. Finally, she pressed call. Ashley. A surprised voice came through the receiver after a couple of rings. Why the hell are you calling me at 10 in the evening? Did something happen? Hey, Matt. Her voice trembled, and she immediately mentally corrected herself. You need to stay calm. I need advice, and it is advisable not to ask too much. Sounds like something serious. He paused. Okay, spit it out. She clutched the phone, running her tongue across her dry lips. Memories of the photograph, of Daniel's strange riddles, of his intense, cold gaze throbbed in my head. All this began to take shape in a terrible picture. I think Daniel suspects something. Maybe. He knows. I cheated on him. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Crap. Are you crazy? What were you missing? I just got carried away. What should I do? Are you sure he knows about the betrayal? Maybe you fooled yourself. Not 100%, but... She swallowed, trying to keep her cool. There are signs. He became different. Cold. Not evil, no. More like calculating. He looks at me as if he is appraising me. It's like it's waiting for me to do something. And also this game. These strange notes, hints. I don't feel like I know him anymore. He's up to something, and I don't like it. Did he say something? Hinted. Matt asked carefully. No, but he's not the same anymore. I see it in his eyes. He doesn't just think about divorce, he makes a plan. And if I wait, he will crush me. She heard Matt sigh heavily. Do you want to serve first? He asked directly. Yes. I want to get ahead of him, she said firmly. If he's going to make me look guilty, I won't give him that opportunity. I want to know what my chances are and what I can get. Okay, Matt's voice became businesslike. Let's figure it out. First of all, did he say anything about divorce? Is there any direct evidence that he plans to file first? No, Ashley admitted. But I know this. Feel. You know how it happens when a person suddenly begins to behave differently, even if he doesn't say anything. It's like a storm that's gathering, but hasn't started yet. I understand, Matt said. Look, it all depends on whether he has evidence. If he finds out about the betrayal and can prove it, he can make you guilty. In this case, your chances of getting a good alimony agreement drop sharply. Ashley clutched the phone in her hand, her nails digging into her palm. She didn't think about it. Officially, she was still a flawless wife. But if Daniel had already collected evidence, then the situation had changed. What if I serve first? Will I be able to get a house, finance, child custody? Theoretically, yes, he answered, especially if you don't have official proven infidelity. But if he produces photographs, recordings, or something similar, the situation will become more complicated. Judges don't like traitors. Even if the marriage was imperfect, this affects the division of property. What if he doesn't say anything? What if he just wants to leave? She asked, suddenly feeling a faint sense of hope. Matt chuckled. Daniel is not the kind of person who leaves without saying the last word. If he knows something, he will use it. The question is how exactly. Ashley closed her eyes, trying to calm her racing heart. Fear began to boil inside, but along with it, a new plan was born. Get me a good lawyer, Matt, she said. The best. I'm already working on it, he replied. But Ashley, be careful. If your husband really knows something, he may be more dangerous than you think. Vincent was sitting in his office, lazily sipping his whiskey, when his phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen. The number was unknown. His eyebrows furrowed slightly, but he didn't feel any anxiety yet. Did someone just get the wrong number or decided to play anonymous threats? However, upon opening the message, he felt an unpleasant chill run down his spine. Time to confess, or you'll lose everything. He reread the text several times. His heart took a strange leap, but he forced himself to remain calm. Confess? What? And to whom? Another failed blackmail attempt? Or did one of his competitors decide to play dirty games with him? He put the glass on the table, put the phone in his pocket, and stood up, starting to slowly walk around the office. Who could write this? No one dared to threaten him. He always kept the situation under control, or almost always. The phone vibrated again. This time his fingers trembled slightly as he unlocked the screen. Amelia must find out the truth. You have 48 hours. Now he felt cold sweat break out on his skin. It was not a mistake, not a prank. Someone knew. Someone was watching. He spun around, looking around the office as if expecting to see hidden cameras. The walls seemed oppressive, the air heavy. He quickly walked to the door, locked it, and exhaled, trying to pull himself together. Taking a deep breath, he typed out the answer. Who are you? What are you trying to achieve? The answer came almost instantly. I'm the one who will ruin your life if you don't do it yourself. The hand gripped the phone so tightly that the knuckles turned white. He felt the blood rush to his face and the rage begin to boil in his chest. Crap. He swallowed. My head was throbbing with hundreds of thoughts. Who could it be? One of his people? Someone he once crossed the path of? Or, no, impossible. Can't be. He grabbed the phone and dialed the assistant's number. Find who sent these messages, he barked as soon as the voice on the other end answered. Urgently, is it something serious? Asked the assistant, clearly yawning. It's none of your business, just do it. Vincent could hardly contain himself. Okay, I'll get busy. Give me an hour. You have 10 minutes, Vincent barked and hung up. He looked at his phone again, waiting for more messages. Nothing. Only oppressive silence. Vincent went to the minibar and poured himself more whiskey, but his hand shook and some of the liquid splashed onto the table. He couldn't remember the last time he was in this state. Panic, real, naked panic crept into his consciousness. Someone has cornered him, and he had no idea how to get out. Vincent sat in his office, drumming his fingers on the table. His assistant spent several hours trying to track down the sender of the anonymous messages, but was unsuccessful. Clean, boss, he said, shrugging. No traces. We used encrypted servers and one-time numbers. Whoever it is, he knows what he's doing. These words caused a new wave of panic in Vincent. He is used to being in control of everything. But now he had no control over anything. They squeezed him from the inside, forcing him to feel like a hunted animal. Anonymous letters. First his business partner from London called. Vincent, what the hell? The voice was tense, even angry. I received a letter with compromising evidence. The signature is anonymous, but there are too many details to be a fake. This is true. What are you talking about? Vincent felt his throat go dry. About your frauds, about transfers through offshore companies, about how you stole from your own wife. If this is true, I can no longer deal with you. I'm not going to drown with you. The call ended. An hour later, 2 more arrived. Then 3. Vincent frantically opened his mail, his face distorted with horror reflected on the screen. His partners, investors, even his closest friends, everyone began to receive anonymous letters with fragments of incriminating evidence. Each contained screenshots, extracts, and excerpts from recorded conversations, evidence of his machinations. Within a day, he lost more than half of his investors. His company's shares began to fall. Banks began to reconsider his credit lines. The wife's lawyers hinted that her father had already begun to dig deeper. Each new call brought more and more bad news. Vincent, we need to meet urgently. His lawyer's voice sounded harsh. "You're in deep trouble. This morning, a person from financial control came to the office. They started checking." "What the hell?" Vincent jumped out of his chair. "Who set them on?" "It's unknown yet, but it's a serious matter. I would advise you to disappear for a while." Vincent abruptly threw the phone onto the table. My heart was beating wildly. He walked around the office, looking out the window. Just yesterday, he was the king of his empire. And now, another letter flashed on the computer screen. He opened it, and a cold wave of horror swept through his body. "The financial world is collapsing, Vincent. Admit it before it's too late." His fingers clenched into fists. Someone methodically, step by step, destroyed it, and he was powerless to do anything. But he wasn't going to give up. Whoever it is will regret going against Vincent Richardson. Ashley nervously clutched the phone in her hand as she listened to Matt's voice. He spoke quickly and clearly, but each word struck his nerves more powerfully than the previous one. "Listen carefully," he began, lowering his voice. "I checked. Daniel isn't just acting weird. He has already begun to prepare to leave. For the past 2 weeks, he has rented a house outside the city. The contract was signed by a fictitious person, but I managed to find out." Ashley froze. Everything went cold inside. "Home?" she asked, barely breathing. "So he's going to leave?" "Not just leave, but do it in such a way as to leave you with nothing," Matt confirmed. "He is already transferring money, small amounts, but regularly, most likely to an account you don't know about. If you don't want to be left with nothing, you need to act immediately." Ashley swallowed. Everything in her head was spinning like a hurricane. "What should I do?" she asked, trying to control the trembling in her voice. "First, withdraw all the money to which you have access, everything down to the penny. If he decides to cut off your finances, you will be left without funds. Second, immediately file for divorce first. The faster you do this, the better your chances." She bit her lip. "And the children? Could he try to take them?" Matt was silent for a moment and then replied, "Yes, and if he's already thinking through his move, rest assured he has a plan. You need to come up with something that will leave him unable to win the custody case." Ashley clenched her fists. A cold shine appeared in his eyes. "I won't let him take the children," she whispered. "Never." "Then take action," Matt said. "You don't have much time." After the call, Ashley sat for a long time, clutching the phone in her hand. My thoughts were confused, my heart was pounding. She knew Daniel was different, but she didn't fully realize how far he had come. He rented a house, transferred money. He wasn't just going to leave, he had carefully planned everything, leaving her in the cold. She stood up abruptly and walked around the room. A wave of fear rose inside, but along with it, anger. Deep, corrosive, boiling inside. He really was going to leave her with nothing. She grabbed her wallet and pulled out her bank card. Her hands shook as she logged into the banking app. There was still a significant amount in the account, but what if tomorrow it was gone? She grabbed her jacket, threw it on, and ran out of the house. She withdrew the maximum possible amount of cash from the bank. Her fingers clutched the envelope of money as if her life depended on it. Returning home, Ashley opened her laptop and began searching for the best divorce lawyers. She couldn't risk it. A few minutes later, she dialed Matt's number again. "Find me a lawyer who will destroy him." Her voice was icy. "I won't let him win." "I'm already working on it," he replied. "But you need something else." "What?" Ashley shuddered. "Reason. You can't just file for divorce without a good reason. If he insists that you are to blame for the breakdown of the marriage, it will work against you. You need something to make him guilty, and it's best if it's related to children." Ashley's grip on the phone tightened. "I'll find a way," she whispered. "At any cost." Ashley couldn't sleep all night. She tossed and turned, replaying Matt's words in her head. The reason? She needed a plan. She opened her laptop and began researching custody laws. At dawn, she went to the children's room. Their son and daughter were sleeping peacefully. She won't let Daniel take them. She made a decision. She will create the image of an ideal mother and show Daniel in the worst possible light. Having collected the documents, she went to the law firm, where Matt had already signed her up. The lawyer listened to her carefully, looking through the papers. "We need compromising evidence," he concluded. "You need to prove that Daniel behaves inappropriately, and then the court will be on your side." Ashley thought about it. What if she checks his phone? What if he finds something that makes him guilty in the eyes of the court? Night enveloped the city, turning the streets into a labyrinth of shadows. In an office building on the 32nd floor, lit only by the dim glow of a desk lamp, Vincent Richardson sat at his massive desk. He rubbed his temples wearily, feeling the fatigue squeezing his muscles. After a hellish day full of threatening calls, questions from partners, and panicked employees, he was finally left alone. This is exactly what Daniel was waiting for. A dark figure moved silently along the corridor. Daniel, dressed in black clothing and a mask, knew every detail of the route. He studied the security system, cameras, and cleaning schedules in advance. He left nothing to chance. The door to Vincent's office was slightly open. He did not hear footsteps behind him. He's too caught up in his own fear. "Good evening, Vincent," said a voice from the shadows. Vincent flinched and turned around sharply. My heart skipped a beat and my palms began to sweat. In front of him stood a masked man, the same nightmare that had already haunted him. "You," his voice broke. He swallowed. "What do you want?" Daniel walked slowly towards him, closing the distance with each step. In his hands was a phone, the screen of which glowed slightly in the dark. He pressed the button. Vincent's voice was heard on the recording, his own voice. "Amelia won't find out. The money was transferred through offshore companies, and the documents are drawn up as if she herself signed them last year. If someone starts digging, they'll cover me. The main thing is that her father doesn't pry. She's too busy with her charity work to check the accounts." Each word hit Vincent like a sledgehammer. He sagged in his chair, feeling like his world was completely collapsing. Confession under pressure. You recorded me," he squeezed out. Daniel chuckled under his mask. "Did you think that your words disappeared into thin air?" His voice was cold. "Now everything is in my hands. One click and your life turns into hell." Vincent clenched his fists. "You don't understand. I just needed to take my share. I planned everything for a long time. Damn, I just wanted to live well." He frantically ran his hands over his face. "That old bastard, Amelia's father, has me on a short leash. I have never been the master of my own life. Do you have any idea what it's like?" Daniel was silent. He just watched and let Vincent do the talking. "This money, it was supposed to be my ticket. I was about to leave. Far, to a place where no one will find me. Just start again. Without this family, without their eternal control." He looked at Daniel with wide eyes. "You have to understand, I didn't mean any harm. Just break out." Daniel tilted his head. "Break out?" His voice sounded almost mocking. "So this is just the escape of a coward who wanted to steal enough money to disappear? Not impressive, Vincent." He was silent, but fear was visible in his eyes. "But you know what else is not impressive?" Daniel continued, leaning closer. "That your wife and your father-in-law do not yet know the whole truth." What do you mean?" Vincent whispered. "Money is one thing, but what about? Your women—" Daniel paused, enjoying the moment. "How do you hang around expensive hotels with your mistresses? How do you have a child on your side that you didn't want, but his mother decided to keep him, despite the money you gave her for an abortion?" Vincent's face turned pale. "No, this can't be. You're lying." "Am I lying?" Daniel laughed a short, hard laugh. "What if I show your wife the photographs? Or should I send a copy of this child's birth certificate to your father-in-law? What do you think will happen next?" Vincent jumped out of his chair in panic. "Listen." He began to stutter. "We can agree. I'll fix everything. I'll give you money. Tell me, how much do you need?" Daniel took a step back and picked up the phone. "Money? I don't need your dirty money, Vincent. I only need one thing." Click. The conversation was recorded. Daniel put the phone in his pocket, looking at Vincent, who was sitting in the chair, devastated and depressed. His eyes darted around the room, his chest heaving convulsively. He was still trying to comprehend how deep he was in. "Goodbye, Vincent," Daniel said in an even voice and turned to leave. "Wait." Vincent rushed forward, but the handcuffs with which he was fastened to the chair did not allow him to get up. "You can't just leave." Daniel didn't turn around. "I've already left." He walked out into the corridor, smoothly closing the door behind him. Vincent's office was on the top floor of the building, and at this late hour the office was empty. Nobody was supposed to see him. He walked into the small kitchen, where there was a coffee machine and a microwave. Opening the back panel of the microwave, he brought out several wires, creating a short circuit that would be delayed. Then he took out a small bottle of alcohol and carefully poured it over the table and carpet. But this was not enough. He walked to the server room, the most vulnerable place in any office. Inside, there were racks of equipment that generated heat. Daniel took a can of antiseptic, which he had brought with him in advance, and sprayed it on the wires. The alcohol-containing liquid was highly flammable. Then he took out a small battery, connected two bare wires to it, and inserted a thin piece of metal foil between them, a homemade fuse. As soon as it starts to heat up, the foil will ignite and spread the fire to the server equipment. To make sure the fire spread, he lit a small candle and placed it next to a trash can filled with crumpled paper files and cardboard boxes. The flame will smolder slowly, but after a few minutes it will reach the paper, creating a fire at the other end of the office. Everything should look like an accident: overheating, short circuit, poor quality electrical wiring. This building had an old electrical panel, and short circuits had happened before. No one will think about arson. Pausing for a second, he looked around the room. Everything looked normal, as if no one had touched the devices. When a spark runs through the wiring, ignition will be inevitable. Daniel left the kitchen and headed towards the elevator. He took his time, moving with absolute calm. Surveillance cameras only recorded a man in black, who looked like an ordinary employee working late. After leaving the building, he got into his car and took out his phone. The video was ready. On it, Vincent clearly pronounced his confession, every word, every detail of his crimes. Daniel added the text: "Amelia, your husband betrayed you. Your father needs to see this." He sent a message to Amelia's and her father's numbers. Then I turned on the navigation and drove to the airport. 10 minutes passed. It became cool outside, and Daniel opened the window slightly, breathing in the fresh air. He knew that Vincent, left in the office, was now trying to free himself. Perhaps you already understand what is happening. Perhaps screaming. But it didn't matter. When the first glow of flame appeared on the horizon 20 minutes later, Daniel was already going through security for a flight to Chicago, creating the perfect alibi for himself. Behind him, on the 32nd floor of an office building, the fire began to grow slowly but inevitably. Sparks from the short circuit reached the paper, and the flames engulfed the furniture. Smoke filled the corridors, blocking escape routes. The entire building will soon turn into a burning inferno. The phone vibrated in the silence of the huge mansion. Amelia Richardson frowned faintly when she saw a message from an unfamiliar number. It was late, and she was about to go to bed, but something in those short words made her heart clench. "Your husband betrayed you. Your father needs to see this." A video file was attached under the message. Amelia slowly pressed the screen, and her hands shook when she saw Vincent, pale, scared, sweaty. He spoke, said everything. About offshore companies, about money, about how he deceived her and her father. His voice trembled, his eyes darted. This was not just a confession, it was the confession of a man who understood that he was driven into a corner. "No," Amelia whispered, feeling a lump forming in her throat. She abruptly closed the video, but the image was already etched into her mind. She jumped to her feet, the phone almost falling out of her hands. Blood was pounding in my temples. My chest felt tight, as if the air had become thick and heavy. "Dad," she shouted, going out into the corridor. A few minutes later, her father, Robert Lancaster, was sitting in a chair in his office, looking at the screen with an impassive expression on his face. His eyes remained cold, but the tension was revealed by his clenched fingers on the armrests. He watched the recording silently. Amelia couldn't stand the silence. "Are you going to say something?" Her voice trembled. He, he lied to us all this time. Did you hear? He used me, you, our family." Robert didn't move. He didn't blink or make any sudden gestures. When the video ended, there was deathly silence in the room. The man reached out, took the glass of whiskey, and took a small sip. "Where is he now?" His voice sounded quietly but firmly, like a hammer blow. "In the office. He always works late," Amelia whispered, still not believing what was happening. Robert rose to his feet. "Let's go. Immediately." When their car pulled up to the company building, chaos was already raging on the street. Sirens, screams, flashing fire truck lights. The fire engulfed the upper floors, clouds of black smoke rising into the sky. "Damn it!" Amelia gasped, jumping out of the car. She couldn't believe her eyes. Vincent was supposed to be here, but instead of a business office, she saw a burning building, engulfed in flames. They made their way through the crowd of onlookers and police. The heat from the fire could be felt even from a distance. Sparks flew into the sky. Clouds of smoke clogged the lungs. "My husband is there," she screamed, grabbing one of the rescuers by the sleeve. "He's upstairs, in the office." The man exchanged glances with his colleagues. "We're trying to get there, but the fire is spreading too quickly. If he's there." He paused, but it was clear from his gaze that there was almost no hope. Amelia clenched her fists, her breathing becoming ragged. She didn't know what to feel. Anger? Fear? The satisfaction of seeing Vincent get what he deserves? Or the horror of knowing that he could burn alive? "He may be alive. Do something." There was panic in her voice. One of the firefighters took her aside. "We are doing everything possible, but the structure of the building is unstable. We can't risk the lives of the rescuers. If he's still there." He didn't finish the sentence, but Amelia understood. If he's still there, he's already dead. A few minutes later, the body was taken out of the building. It was covered with a fire blanket, but Amelia knew who it was. Robert stepped forward, looking at the stretcher with a stony expression on his face. He didn't say a word. "Identification will be required," said one of the policemen, glancing at Amelia and her father. Amelia couldn't help herself. "It's him." Her voice broke. "This is Vincent," she screamed. The lights were dim in the conference room at the police station. Amelia Richardson sat at the table with her arms crossed over her chest, her eyes red from crying, but her voice firm. Opposite her is Detective Mark Langley, an experienced investigator with a piercing gaze. Her father, Robert Lancaster, stood nearby, silently watching what was happening, clutching a glass of unfinished coffee in his hand. There was a faint smell of cigarettes in the air, mixed with the aroma of cheap paper and old archival files that were piled on a nearby table. The silence was broken only by the hum of lamps and the muffled voices of policemen outside the door. "So you received this message a few hours before the fire?" Langley asked, slowly flipping through a printout of the call and message session on Amelia's phone. Her cell phone screen was still lit, showing the last video she had sent a frightened Vincent confessing to his shenanigans. "Yes," Amelia's voice trembled, but she held on. "I immediately showed it to my father, and we decided to talk to Vincent personally. We went to the office, but it was too late." Langley nodded, making notes on his notepad. "We checked the scene of the incident. The fire was located in the server room and kitchen. Initial examination indicates a short circuit. The building is old. The electrical wiring system has long been in need of replacement. According to preliminary findings, the fire started due to overheating of the equipment. Security cameras were damaged, which coincides with the fire point in the server room. In general, everything points to randomness." Amelia nervously clasped her fingers together. Her heart was beating too fast in her chest. But if he could get out, maybe he didn't want to. Langley turned his gaze to her. There was a mixture of professional interest and sympathy in his eyes. "Mrs. Richardson, based on the information we have, your husband was cornered. Confession video, financial crisis, possible criminal proceedings. He lost everything. We found traces of alcohol on the carpeting, but forensic experts have not yet come to a final conclusion whether it was spilled intentionally or accidentally. The doors were locked from the inside. Given the circumstances, the most likely version is suicide." Amelia felt her insides turn cold. Her gaze darted to her father, but Robert, still stone-faced, looked at the detective. "Are you sure?" His voice sounded evenly, but there was a steely note in it. Langley shrugged slightly. "These are preliminary conclusions for now. The final conclusion will be given after a detailed study of the evidence. But, Mr. Lancaster, tell me frankly, your son-in-law was in despair. Couldn't he have decided to take such a step?" Robert was silent for a long time, then slowly put the glass of coffee on the table. He looked closely at Amelia. There was no softness in his gaze, only a cold analysis of the situation. "I knew Vincent was a creep," he said quietly, "but I didn't think he was a coward." Amelia swallowed hard. She didn't know what was scarier, admitting that he really committed suicide, or realizing that someone helped him do it. Langley collected the papers into a folder and stood up. "If you have any additional information, please let us know. So far, the official version is suicide." He headed towards the exit, leaving Amelia and her father alone with their thoughts. Only Amelia could not get rid of the feeling that this was not the whole truth. Ashley sat at the kitchen table with a stack of documents spread out in front of her. Her fingers nervously tapped the tabletop, and her gaze wandered over the lines of legal text. Paperwork for the house seemed like her last chance to get out of this quagmire. She so desperately wanted to sell it, to get at least some money so that she could finally break with her past life. She picked up the pen, preparing to sign the documents, but something in the text gave her a strange feeling. Squinting, she reread one of the clauses of the contract. My heart beat faster. The property is registered in trust for the benefit of minor heirs. Any transaction with the property is possible only with their consent after reaching the age of majority. Ashley felt her insides go cold. "Damn," she whispered, leaning back in her chair. She read the paragraph over and over again, hoping she had simply misunderstood. But no, the meaning was obvious. She couldn't sell the house. It belonged to children, and until they turned 18, she had no right to do anything with him. His hands shook with anger. It was Daniel's move. He provided for everything. Even if she tries to escape, she will have no money. He tied her to this place, to these walls, to the memories she so desperately wanted to get rid of. Ashley jumped up and walked around the kitchen. His head throbbed with anger. How could he? All this time he was preparing for war, setting traps, creating barriers, and she was too naive to notice it. He played with her, and she lost. There was the sound of the TV in the living room. The announcer's voice broke through the noise of thoughts, barely perceptible at first, but then broke through the hum in my head. This morning in the city center, there was a major fire in one of the office buildings. Rescuers recovered the body of businessman Vincent Richardson from the rubble. The world froze. Her head began to spin, and Ashley felt the blood drain from her face. She slowly turned to the TV, her hands convulsively clenched into fists. The screen showed footage of a burned-out building, flashing lights of fire trucks and charred walls. Vincent is dead. She took a few hesitant steps towards the TV without taking her eyes off the screen. According to preliminary data, the cause of the fire could have been a short circuit in the server room. Richardson's body was found on the 32nd floor of the building. Experts are considering an accident or suicide. Ashley slowly sank down onto the couch. There was a tightness in my chest, as if someone had placed a heavy stone. My heart was pounding dully in my ears. Vincent is dead. Daniel sat in a small hotel room, looking at the night city outside the window. The street lights stretched on forever. Passers-by were hurrying about their business. Cars were rushing along the highway, and no one suspected that in one of these rooms, There was a man who had just crossed out someone's life. He should have felt satisfied. The plan worked perfectly. Everything looked natural. Suicide against the backdrop of a ruined life, what could be more logical? The investigation will not dig deeper, the press will write a couple of notes, and everything will be forgotten. But inside there was neither rejoicing nor a feeling of victory, only emptiness and heaviness. He sat in the semi-darkness, slowly rocking a glass of whiskey in his hand. Amber liquid splashed against the walls, reflecting the light of the street lamps. What now? He was replaying the events of the last few weeks in his head. All the steps, all the moves. How he received the first confirmation of betrayal, how he hired a detective, how he built a plan for revenge. It was as if someone else was moving for him, like a puppet, according to a pre-calibrated scenario. But now this scenario has come to an end. What's next? Divorce. He knew it was inevitable. Everything was heading towards this from the moment he received the first evidence of Ashley's betrayal. He saw her smiling at someone else, how she held his hand, how she kissed him. This image was ingrained in his memory. He will never forgive her. But now, as the moment approached, he felt a strange emptiness. How will he look her in the eyes? How to behave with children? He understood that everything was more complicated with them. It's not their fault. He loved them and was ready to do anything for them. But after the divorce, how often will he be able to see them? How will Ashley turn them against him? Will she tell them the truth, or will she make him look like a monster? He didn't know. Daniel closed his eyes. My son's voice and my daughter's laughter sounded in my head. These moments when they fell asleep in his arms, when he taught them to ride a bike, when he laughed with them. Would they still laugh with him the same way after everything that had happened? Time passed, but he could not decide what to do. Be the first to file for divorce? Give her a chance to justify herself? Pretend that nothing happened? No, he couldn't forget. He looked at the phone. He wanted to write to the children, to hear their voices. But now it was 3 o'clock in the morning. What kind of father calls at a time like this? Daniel sighed and poured himself another whiskey. The same question flashed through my head. What is his path now? Time to move on. But where? Daniel sat in the darkened hotel room, looking at his suitcase. Things remained scattered, just as he had pulled them out on the first night after his arrival. He should have felt relief, but inside there was only a feeling of incompleteness. Everything went according to plan. Vincent is dead. The official version is suicide. But what next? He ran his hand over his face and took a deep breath. His thoughts weren't on Vincent, Ashley, children. How can he look them in the eye after everything? How to behave with a wife who betrayed him? How to explain to children that their family will no longer be the same? He took out his phone and opened a photo album. Photos from trips, birthdays, morning breakfasts in pajamas. The children smiled at him from the screen, carefree and happy. They shouldn't suffer. Daniel closed his eyes. He couldn't let his thirst for revenge ruin everything. He has already destroyed Vincent. He proved to Ashley that he would not forgive betrayal. But he doesn't want his children to remember him as a man full of hatred. The decision came suddenly, but definitively. He's coming back. He'll talk to Ashley. They will divorce, but without scandals, without dirt. Children must stay out of this chaos. He got up, went to the table, and turned on the laptop. The next flight home was in a few hours. He quickly booked his ticket, then began packing his things. This time carefully, without fuss. He wasn't coming back for revenge. He was coming back to close this chapter once and for all. Ashley sat on the couch with her arms wrapped around her knees. The day had turned out to be difficult. She was trying to sort out the house, thinking about what to do next, and all she wanted now was silence. The children were with their grandmother, and for the first time in a long time, the house was empty. But the peace did not last long. There was a sharp, loud knock on the door. Not a call, but a knock, demanding, rude. It was as if whoever was outside wasn't going to wait. Ashley shuddered, cautiously rose from the sofa and headed towards the door. She opened it, and a woman appeared before her all in tears, with reddened eyes and disheveled hair. Vincent's wife. You, she hissed, and there was so much pain and rage in her voice that Ashley instinctively stepped back. But the guest did not give her time to recover. She literally burst inside, slamming the door behind her. You fucking creature. Her voice trembled with anger. You ruined my life. She stepped forward, clenching her fists. Did you think that I wouldn't find out anything? Did you think you could get away with it? What are you talking about? Ashley tried to remain calm, but her heart was beating like crazy. Vincent's wife threw the phone in her face. The device fell to the floor with a thud. Ashley froze. Open it. See for yourself. Her voice became almost hissing. Now I know who you are. Ashley slowly leaned over and picked up the phone. The screen was unlocked. A folder with photographs and screenshots of correspondence was open there. She saw herself. Photos from restaurants, hotels, trips. Affectionate messages where Vincent called her his new life. Where, did you get this? Her voice trembled. In the cloud, the woman barked. After his death, I gained access to his accounts. Vincent was sure that he had everything under control, but he didn't bother to delete the correspondence. You were his mistress. He was going to leave me for you. Ashley turned pale. What are you doing? Didn't you know? Vincent's wife laughed bitterly. Of course I knew. He swore to me that we were family, and he himself was preparing plans to run away with you. How long have you been messing around with him behind my back? Ashley clenched her fists, fighting off panic. Look, I didn't mean. You didn't want to. The woman jumped up to her, her eyes darting wildly. You took everything from me. All. I lost my husband. My children will now have to grow up without a father. And you're alive. You sit here in your cozy home and pretend to be a victim. He used me the same way he used you, Ashley tried to say. But the woman was no longer listening. In a blind rage, she grabbed the first thing she found on the table, a vase, and threw it forcefully into the wall. The glass shattered into hundreds of pieces. I hate you, she screamed so loudly that the walls shook. I swore I wouldn't just leave it like that. Ashley backed away, heart pounding in her chest. She had never seen such hatred. Tears, anger, and hatred clouded the eyes of Vincent's wife. She didn't just scream, she lost her temper. Her body trembled with rage, her lips pressed into a thin line, and her hands convulsively clenched into fists. Ashley stepped back, realizing that this woman was capable of anything at this moment. You ruined everything for me, she sobbed, breaking into a scream. It's all because of you, bitch. He was going to leave me, take the money, and then run off with you, right? Listen, Ashley didn't have time to finish. The enraged woman rushed forward and pushed her in the chest with all her strength. Ashley stumbled back, her legs gave way, and she fell backwards. Suddenly, a sharp, piercing pain flared up in her temple. Her head hit the hard corner of the table with all her might. The sound was dull, but there was a clap of thunder inside. The world swam before my eyes, pain pierced my skull, and my ears began to ring. She groaned, instinctively pressing her hand to her head. Something warm flowed down my temple. Blood. Vincent's wife froze, her chest rising and falling sharply. What did she just do? Ashley took a deep breath, feeling her vision darken. My head was spinning, the pain was pulsating in my temple. Her hands shook as she tried to rise, but her muscles weakened. Oh, she whispered, breathing heavily, trying to focus her eyes. But before anyone could say a word, a new sound was heard. Loud slam of the door. Daniel stood in the doorway. He didn't just walk in, he broke in. His breathing was deep, heavy, and his gaze, ice, anger. He didn't just see, he understood. All, a crumpled, shocked Ashley. Her wound. The woman who still clenched her fists in anger. The room became unbearably quiet. Only Ashley's hoarse breathing and the intermittent sobs of Vincent's wife filled the air. What the hell is going on here? His voice was dull, low, and dangerous. Vincent's wife slowly turned her head towards him. Fear flashed in her eyes. For the first time, she realized that she was no longer in control of the situation. Daniel took a step forward, then another. His shadow covered her figure like a warning. His gaze was fixed on Ashley. "Are you okay?" His voice sounded quieter, but this made it even more threatening. Ashley tried to say something, but the lump in her throat prevented her from saying a word. She felt blood running down her cheek, warm and sticky. The eyelids became heavier, consciousness slowly slipped away. Vincent's wife suddenly raised her head, as if realizing that there was still a chance to justify herself. "It's her," she shouted, her voice breaking into a hysterical squeal. "It's all because of her. She ruined my life. I just wanted her to understand what it was like to lose everything." Daniel didn't even flinch. His eyes, filled with rage, glared at the woman. "You hit her," he said calmly, but there was something frightening in this calmness. It was an accident." Vincent's wife shook her head. She, she deserved it. She slept with my husband. Shut up," Daniel muttered. The woman froze, her breathing hitched. At that moment, she realized that she had crossed a line beyond which she could not return. Ashley twitched weakly, her fingers unclenched, and her body went limp. Her eyes rolled back, and the next moment she sank to the floor, completely motionless. Daniel rushed towards her. "Does it work?" He grabbed her by the shoulders and turned her over onto her back. Her face was pale, her lips were slightly parted. He quickly leaned towards her chest, trying to catch her breath. Nothing. Panic washed over him like a cold wave. "Damn." "No, no, no." Daniel immediately felt the pulse in her neck. Weak, almost imperceptible. My heart sank, adrenaline rushed into my blood. "She's dying." He jerked his head up and looked at Vincent's frozen wife. "Call an ambulance. Now." She didn't move. Her hands were shaking, her eyes were wide open, and horror was visible in them. She didn't want this. She's just... "Call the damn ambulance," Daniel barked. The woman shuddered, clenched her fists, and rushed to the phone. Daniel looked back at Ashley. "Just try, bitch, die." Ambulance sirens broke the silence of the night. Red and blue lights reflected in the windows of the houses, filling the street with an alarming glow. Daniel stood at the door, clenching his fists, as the paramedics hurriedly carried Ashley on a stretcher to the ambulance. "The pressure is dropping." One of the doctors shouted, "We are losing her." "Damn, faster." Adrenaline. The second paramedic was already injecting the injection directly into her vein. Daniel stepped forward, trying to follow them, but one of the orderlies blocked his path. "You can't. We are doing our best. I'll go with her." Daniel barked so loudly that the guy instinctively recoiled. He didn't have to repeat himself. A second later, he was already in the car, sitting opposite Ashley, who was connected to a ventilator. Her face was pale, her lips were blue. The doctors worked quickly, but the tension was visible on their faces. "Hold on, damn you, hold on," Daniel whispered, clenching his fists. The car rushed off, maneuvering between cars, making its way through the night traffic. Daniel watched as the doctors clung to her life, but somewhere deep inside he already knew the truth. The hospital greeted them with chaos. Bright lights, people in white coats, people running around, a team of doctors already waiting for them at the entrance. She was taken away. The minutes dragged on forever. Daniel walked back and forth along the corridor, feeling a cold emptiness growing inside. He shouldn't have let this happen. He hated her. Hated her for betraying him, for lying, for all those moments when she smiled at another man, when she hid the truth, while he slowly went crazy trying to piece together the pieces of their life. But he didn't want it. He didn't want it to end like this. He wanted her to answer to him, to the children. I wanted her to understand what she had done. And now she's gone. How will he tell the children? We did everything we could. The doctor's voice was distant, as if through cotton wool. Daniel slowly lowered his head. There was a buzzing in my ears. He lost her. She had to suffer for what she did. But not like that. Not like that. He pinched the bridge of his nose with his fingers, trying to collect his thoughts, but instead he felt his breathing become ragged. My chest felt tight, and there was a lump in my throat. Children. They were waiting for her. They didn't know. How will he tell them now that their mother is dead? He slowly looked up at the doctor. How? How did this happen? She was still breathing. The doctor sighed heavily. Head injury. Internal hemorrhage. We didn't have time. These words cut him from the inside. Daniel spun around and punched the wall. The pain echoed throughout his arm, but he did not feel it. Only emptiness. He hated her, but he didn't want her to die. The huge living room was dark. Only the soft light of the floor lamp illuminated the figure of Amelia Richardson sitting in the chair. Her eyes were red and tear-stained. Her hands were shaking as she clutched a glass of wine in her fingers. Ashley is killed. This thought burned through her consciousness, tearing her soul. She didn't want this. I didn't plan to. She just wanted to tell her everything, to show her what pain was burning her from the inside. But now Ashley is dead, and it's her fault. Somewhere in the depths of the house, an old clock was ticking. The sound was deafening in the silence. Amelia felt her stomach squeezing into a painful lump and the blood pounding in her temples. She wanted to get drunk and forget herself, but she knew that alcohol would not save her. It will only drown out the voice of reason for a few hours, but in the morning the truth will cover it with renewed vigor. You will not go to the police. The voice of her father, Robert Lancaster, sounded firmly. He sat opposite, his gaze cold and appraising. We'll sort this out. You won't say anything. Amelia pursed her lips, gripping her glass tighter. No, Dad, I can't. You can too. Robert leaned forward, looking at her as if he were talking to a child. We have connections. Money. Do you think I'll let my daughter go to jail for some dirty bitch? Amelia shuddered at these words. Dirty whore? Still trying to comprehend, she looked up at her father, but he was looking at her with the same cold expression. She was human, Amelia screamed, her eyes filled with tears. A man who had children, who are now left without a mother. Do you even understand what I did? Robert was silent. His face remained impassive. You protected your family, he said finally. They don't judge you for this. This is a lie. Amelia stood up abruptly, almost knocking over her glass. I killed her. I pushed her and she died. You can buy a court, you can pay anyone, but it won't change the fact. I'm a murderer. You're not a murderer as long as no one says you're a murderer, Robert said in an even voice. If you go to the police, you will ruin not only your life, but also the lives of your children. Do you need it? And you? Do you need this? She shouted. All you do is try to protect your name, your reputation. You never cared about me, only about yourself and how to maintain your damn status. Robert narrowed his eyes. Something akin to irritation flashed in his gaze. You're acting like a hysteric Amelia, he muttered. You think I didn't care about you? Why do you think you are here? Thanks to your love. No, my dear. You lived in wealth. You had everything. I spent fortunes on you. And what? Now you want to destroy everything. Amelia ran her hands over her face, choking with emotion. She couldn't take it anymore. She couldn't live with it. I can't live with this, Dad. I'll go and confess. Then you are no longer my daughter, he said coldly. She froze, pain flashed in her eyes. But the next moment she straightened her shoulders and wiped away her tears. She couldn't continue living a lie. Then so be it. Robert didn't move, just watched silently as his daughter took the keys and left, leaving deaf silence behind her. She got into the car and gripped the steering wheel tightly. My chest felt tight, but my soul felt a little lighter. She will do it. She will go to the police and take the punishment she deserves. There was only one question left: will she ever forgive herself? The police station was filled with the usual noise: telephone ringing, muffled conversations, the monotonous tapping of fingers on keyboards. Amelia Richardson sat on a hard wooden chair in the interrogation room, her hands folded in her lap. Her fingers trembled, but her face remained calm. She knew why she came. Detective Mark Langley entered the room, holding a notepad and a tape recorder. He silently sat down opposite her, looking intently into her eyes. You said you wanted to confess, Mrs. Richardson. His voice was even, professional. What exactly do you want to communicate? Amelia took a deep breath. Her heart was beating like crazy, but she could no longer hide the truth. "I killed Ashley Kincaid," she said, looking straight into the detective's eyes. "It was an accident, but I am guilty. I pushed her, and she died." Langley's face didn't change, but she noticed how he gripped the pen of his notepad a little tighter. "Do you understand that this confession can have serious consequences?" He clarified. "Yes," she nodded. "I didn't come here to look for excuses. I came to accept my punishment." Behind the glass of the observation room stood Robert Lancaster. His face was stony, but rage was raging inside. His daughter just destroyed her life. Meanwhile, Daniel Kincaid stood at Ashley's grave. A cold wind lifted fallen leaves. The sun slowly dropped below the horizon. His children stood nearby, not fully understanding what was happening. How to explain to a child that his mother will not return? His fists clenched as he remembered everything. How he hated her, how he dreamed of revenge, how he wanted to see her suffer for her betrayal. But he didn't want it, didn't want her to die. "Dad, is Mom in heaven now?" his daughter asked quietly, clinging to his sleeve. Daniel swallowed hard. "Yes, baby," he managed. "She's in heaven." Tears burned in his eyes, but he couldn't let them come out. Now he was alone. Now he had to be both father and mother. The trial was quick. Amelia didn't resist. She did not ask for protection, did not try to justify herself. The press greedily savored the details: murder, scandal, tragedy. Vincent Richardson, Ashley Kincaid, now Amelia Lancaster, all found themselves victims of ruined lives. When the judge read the verdict, Amelia did not listen. She already knew him. Guilty, imprisonment. But when she was taken out of the hall, for the first time in a long time, she felt something like relief. She didn't lie anymore. 3 months have passed. Daniel continued to live. He did not forget, did not forgive, but learned to move on. For children, for their sake, he held on. On the day he was given a letter from prison, he did not dare to open it for a long time. But in the end, he unfolded the paper. "Daniel, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I want you to know that I'm sorry. I'm sorry that our lives turned out this way. I can't change the past, but I can pay for it. I hope you find a way to move on. Amelia." Daniel looked at the letter for a long time, then slowly folded it and put it in the drawer. He didn't know what to feel: anger, emptiness, or just tired. Sighing, he stood up and went to the children. They needed life. No lies, no revenge, no pain. End. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think, click to the next one.